I'm Anthony L. Elmore, President and Founder of the proud Black Buddhist World Association. Our lecture today is Asians, Whites, and Blacks Teach a Racist Form of Buddhism. That the world's first racism in history is white Buddhist history. One says, finding shed light on the date of the life of the Buddha. Another says, archaeology discovery puts Buddha's birth 300 years earlier. Another says, evidence of Buddha's birth date uncovered by archaeologists at the temple in Nepal. Oldest Buddhist statue shrine in Nepal may put back the Buddha's birth date. What we have regarding the Buddha is archaeological evidence. You see, Professor Roger Cunningham of Durham University said this about the recent discovery regarding the Buddha. Quote, "This is one of those rare occasions when belief, traditions, archaeology, and science come together." Now, in regards to belief, traditions, archaeology, and science, when it comes to the white Buddha, this is where belief and science does not come together. See, what we can prove, however, that the world's first record of white supremacy, racism, and cultural appropriation is the story of white Buddhist history. You see, let us make it simple and put this in the words of the hood. You see, ancient India was all black until it was conquered in the 1st century AD by a group of white people known as Indo-Aryans. They established in India the Kushan Empire. You see, we ask you to check the record of racism in world history, and you will learn that the first evidence of racism and white supremacy was started in India via the Kushan Empire, who were white people who conquered the indigenous black people of India. And Mahayana Buddhism was founded by the white Kushan king Kanishka and the Brahmin Ashvaghosha. It was King Kanishka who introduced a new form of Buddhism to India that no one could understand because it was written in a language that no one could speak, called Sanskrit. See, the new form of Buddhism was called Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism was the Buddhism of the Mahayanas, or the religion of the Brahmins. Now, see, when the white man got into power, the leaders of the Brahmins were now white people, and they used their white culture, their white history, and their white language to take over Buddhism and make the Buddha white. See, Mahayana Buddhism was the Buddhism or the Brahmins, in that the Mahayanas were the Brahmins. See, the aim of Mahayana Buddhism was to rid Buddhism of its black history, culture, and language. See, to rid Buddhism of its black history, they rewrote the Buddhist history in Sanskrit, and they extricated all black history. See, the now white Vedics, you see, after the Kushans conquered, the now white Vedics who occupied the apex of the social pyramid could not tolerate their historical inferiority, because they knew that if the people came to know that the Brahmanical culture came after Buddhism, their Vedas, gods and goddesses, would become a bundle of lies. So what they did was they went in and they rewrote history. They made their Vedas to be before Buddhism, and they changed the dates. But there is no archaeological, anthropological, genetic science, literary science, or linguistic science of white people coming to India or a white Buddha. So there is no misunderstanding regarding white Buddhism. Let us present to you historical facts about white Buddhism. They did not call it white Buddhism. They called it superior Buddhism, or they call it higher teachings, you see, or the higher vehicle. See, superior Buddhism, or what they call the higher vehicle, is a white racist or a white supremacist concept. You see, they gave white Buddhism a new name, and they called it Mahayana Buddhism, or the higher teachings. The white people categorize all of the non-white Buddhism as Hinayana, or lower or inferior teachings. You see, this is a white plot to discredit Buddhism and make white Buddhism superior. See, the new Buddhist concept of higher teachings and lower teachings is a white racist concept. Let us use common sense. Under the Buddhist rule, we have records of a peace and prosperity in India. Just Google the story of King Ashoka. King Ashoka was known as Ashoka the Great. He was an Indian emperor. King Ashoka was the third monarch of India's Maurya dynasty, which was black. And he was considered one of the most exemplary rulers who ever lived. One can talk all day long about higher or lower teachings, but the Buddhism in India prior to Mahayana Buddhism promoted peace and prosperity in the world, and there was no such thing as a caste system or racism in India during the time of Maurya or Black Buddhist rule. You see, even the African empires who adopted Buddhism prospered. You see, the four great empires of Africa, you had the Ethiopian, you had the Egyptian, and you had the Nubian. You had the Indus Valley civilization. See, these were the four great Buddhist empires. Now, when they adopted Mahayana Buddhism, they wrote black people out of history. In fact, you see, Buddhism comes, or the people of the Buddha comes from the Indus Valley civilization, known as the Sarasvati River civilization. You see, the Sarasvati River civilization, ladies and gentlemen, was 2 times larger than Mesopotamia and Egypt put together. In fact, the Sarasvati River civilization, or the Indus Valley, or what is called the Harappan civilization, was the most advanced civilization in world or early human history. In fact, it took people known as white people 2,000 years to make a civilization that was advanced as the Sarasvati River or the Harappan or the Indus Valley civilization. They had running water, indoor toilets, they had city planning. Now, what they did with this Mahayana Buddhism is that they took credit for Buddhism or made themselves higher. Now, it was the Magadha Empire that evolved after the Indus Valley civilization declined. It declined not because of some white Aryans. It declined because the Sarasvati River dried up. Now, the new Buddhist concept of higher teachings and lower teachings is a white racist concept. 185 BC, the Brahmin general Pushyamitra killed the black Muslim king Bidadatra, Maurya in broad daylight. Pushyamitra killed all the Buddhists and he established the Brahmin Shunga Empire. When white Kushan king conquered black India, Buddhism had died in India, and the now white king Kanishka, the Brahmin Ashkagosha, established the new Buddhism of Mahayana Buddhism. They introduced a new white Buddhism in India. Now, let us talk about the qualities of the new white or Mahayana Buddhism. The most important thing to learn about Mahayana Buddhism is that it was written and spoken in a foreign or an Indo-Aryan language called Sanskrit. You see, Mahayana Buddhism was based on the white race, the white culture, and the white language. See, the language of Mahayana Buddhism was Sanskrit. Now, the first evidence of Sanskrit is found in the AD called the Rudra Danam. Sanskrit is a language adopted as Indo-European, Indo-Aryan, or Indo-Iranian. See, the language of the Buddha, and Buddhism was Sanskrit. Now, India was conquered by the white king Kanishka, who created a Buddhism that not only extricated all black history, culture, and language from Buddhism. Genetic science tells us that the caste system in India started only 1900 years ago, or at the time of the reign of King Kanishka. This makes King Kanishka the first white racist king, and the whitewash or the whitening of Buddhism or white Buddhist history, the world's first racist history. See, the racist caste system started under King Kanishka, and it is genetic science that tells us exactly when the caste system started. Prior to science, whites or these Vedics wrote in the Vedas that the caste system started around 1500 BC, and science proves that the Vedas are false. Now, let's take this thing further. See, in regards to culture, the white king Kanishka created a white Buddhist cultural revolution. King Kanishka made his capital in Gandhara. See, Gandhara is most noted in history for its Buddhist art. You see, or its white Buddhist cultural revolution. See, King Kanishka started a revolution, and the revolution was they used images, and they called images of making the Buddha white. It was in Gandhara, whereas the culture evolved, whereas they changed the Buddha from black to white. It was the cultural revolution in Gandhara where we find the Hellenistic Buddhist and Greek images. We can say that white Buddhism is history's first racism. See, the Buddhist art was more than a cultural revolution. It was a racist revolution and the world's first recorded history of racism. See, Mahayana Buddhism not only practiced the extrication of black Buddhist history, culture, and language, genetic science now accurately and scientifically placed the origin of the caste system to 1900 years ago, or the time of the Shaka era when the white Kushans conquered Black India. There exists no archaeological, anthropological, literary science, genetic science, linguistic science of the caste system in India before Mahayana Buddhism or the white Kushan era of India. Let us make this note. When the white Kushans gained power in India, they occupied the apex of society and they became the Brahmin leaders, creating the racist caste culture that evolved concurrent with Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism is white Buddhism that is history's first racism. Let us move back to the written history and the father of history, Herodotus. See, Herodotus lived about 200 years after the Black Buddha Shakyamuni, and he visited India. And this is what Herodotus writes about India. He writes, quote, "All the tribes I mentioned, their skin is the same color, much like the Ethiopians." He goes on further. Upon his return to Greece, they gathered around and asked, "Tell us about the great land of the blacks called Ethiopia." And Herodotus said, quote, "There are two great Ethiopian nations. One is Sin, India, and the other is Egypt," unquote. You see, the ancient Nubians in Africa were Buddhists, and they lived on the Nile River. See, Herodotus visited Nubia, and this is what he wrote about the capital of Nubia called Meroe. Herodotus speaks of Meroe as the cradle of the Gymnosophist or Buddhists. You see, in the book The Anaclypsis, the British historian Godfrey Higgins writes, we see here that the followers of the Buddha are called Gymnosophists. It has been observed that Meroe of Ethiopia was Muru, and this is confirmed by the observation of Helidorius, that the priests of Meroe were of a humane character and were called Gymnosophists, unquote. You see, Mahayana Buddhists call their Buddhism a higher teaching. We find nowhere in Mahayana Buddhism where they're called humane. In fact, it is Mahayana Buddhism that overlooked the caste system, and there's no history of no Mahayanas around the world fighting the racist caste system or the worst inhumanity against humanity in human history. It is Mahayana Buddhism, whereas white Buddhism is history's first racism. Many white people said, what difference does it make whether the Buddha was black or white? White Buddhism is history's first racism. Mahayana Buddhism is a time in history, whereas Buddhism became separated by race, culture, and language. As you see in this lecture, white people, Asians, and black people who are trained by Asians are all complicit in hiding the true black Buddhist history. We need a proud black Buddhist sect to get the history of the Buddha correct.